Well, good evening, everyone. My name is John Raymond, and this is Timeshare Talks for Consumers. And I'm your host tonight with Wayne Robinson and Irene Parker, and our guest is Keith Dewhurst. A little bit about Wayne. He's the author of this awesome book called Everything About Timeshares. Anyone interested in a timeshare or who owns a timeshare, they really should buy this book. And you're going to find the information right down below here in the description of how to find that book. You'll find all the information about Keith Dewhurst and his he's the director of the Timeshare Consumer Association in the UK. Also with us tonight is Irene Parker, a great friend and a person that's helped a lot of people sell their timeshares. So Keith, I met you a couple of weeks ago. I was really interested in what you and your organization do in the UK, and wanted to bring you on and just can you tell us a little bit about how it started and what you do and how you help folks?
Yep, certainly can do. Good evening, Irene. Good evening, Wayne. Timeshare Consumer Association. It was founded back in 1997. By a gentleman called Sandy Gray, who unfortunately is no longer with us. Originally, Sandy was pretty upset at the way the timeshare industry was behaving, mostly in terms of its sales methods, ongoing service, lack of availability, normal things that we experience nowadays. So he set the organization up. Subsequent to that, it's gone through various ownerships. I'm now the current managing director. Our modus operandi is no different today to what it was when Sandy first started it. We generally, I won't say the word attack, it's probably a too strong a word, but we comment on the wrongs that the timeshare industry is perpetrating with owners. And also a major part of our time is discovering and exposing scam companies, of which unfortunately within the European timeshare market, there are probably more scammers than there are legitimate companies. So that's really our brief. We're a volunteer organization. There's only 4 of us that man the telephones and man the email line, and we just help people as much as we can with the knowledge that we have of timeshare.
Awesome. Irene, I think you have a few questions that you had lined up for Keith tonight.
Yeah, and I'm so impressed that Sandy Gray started the organization in 1997 and sadly passed away in 2013. But what I've been involved with Inside Timeshare since 2016 and actually flew to the Canary Islands and learned about these EU directives. But the most revolutionary thing is after these directives were enforced, if you buy a timeshare, no money exchanges hands for 14 days. And I can't imagine the industry even existing in the US if that happened. And Keith said that also means that you have 14 days that you can cancel for any reason. So that must have just devastated the timeshare industry. Can you just tell us the effect of that, Keith?
Yes, I mean, it has had a very big effect. The EU directive, well, first of all, going back, Spain were the first country to introduce what we call in Europe a cooling off period, and originally it was 10 days. But then when the EU directive came out in 2008, it was extended to 14 days. Also, as part of that directive as well, although not known to most consumers, is the fact that you can ask for a copy of the sales contract to read and digest before you even go to the presentation, a bit like a POS would be in America. But the 14-day cooling off period, yes, is very strict. You can go to a sales presentation, you can sit through it, you can think that you like the product, but you can't pay any money. It's against the law across the whole of Europe to take money within that 14-day period. So you say, what's the effect on the industry, Irene? Well, I won't say it decimated it, but it certainly has had an enormous impact because anybody knows who has been involved with any form of salesman. A salesman only likes to complete the job when he can take money off people at the end of a presentation, whether it be for a new car or whether it be for a timeshare. Well, of course, they can't do that now. You know, all they can do is hope that within that 14 days, their consumer, their prospect, call them what you like, doesn't change their mind and still completes the sale. As I think I mentioned to you, Irene, I mean, that basically, along with the tightness of the legislation, killed off diamond resorts in Europe. They just do not sell in Europe. They have closed their European sales operation down completely, with the exception of a couple of in-house representatives. For those people who go back on holiday to a diamond resort, they may possibly be upsold. But the actual big sales deck that everybody's familiar with in timeshare doesn't exist anymore in diamond. And this applies not only to diamond. One of the largest resort companies in Europe is a company called Club La Costa. They have 23 resorts spread around. Last November, they made 323 people redundant and closed down their entire sales operation. So yes, it has had a massive impact to a certain extent.
Okay, and the deception that upset the founder of your organization in the U.S., I'm in the group of people that purchased a timeshare in the 80s, where we were all told it was like real estate. And even though agents are not supposed to say that it's an investment, they still do. And you could sell it just like real estate. And now we're all in our 70s, 80s. I have some in their 90s with very high credit scores that have no choice but to default when the resort will not take it back. The other is promised that if you buy more points, you'll be able to pay your maintenance fees, falsely stating that. Is it the same type of deception that you've heard over the years currently or in the beginning?
I think generally speaking, the answer to that would be yes. The product is embellished more so than the reality. I mean, as for regards to points and maintenance, I haven't come across that personally with European timeshare, but you know, the usual untruths that are probably familiar in America as they are in Europe are exactly the same. The European legislation now does clearly say that at no stage must it be intimated that the product you are buying is any form of investment. About the closest you can get to it is saying it's an investment in your future holidays, but you mustn't give any intimation at all that it is a financial investment. Obviously, timeshare has moved on over the years, and one of the vogue products in Europe now is fractional ownership. Fractional ownership is meant to present people with an opportunity of investment, but even that cannot be mentioned that it's an investment at all. You know, you may get back your money at the end of the term. You may get a bit more. It has to be couched like that. You can't say you'll definitely make more money. It's an investment. It's gone completely. The normal untruths are the sort of things like, you know, you buy 1 week in a very small Spanish resort off season, and the rep tells you if you go to RCI or Interval International, you can swap it for 2 weeks in Barbados, which we know doesn't happen. Quality of accommodation on the tour, you're always shown the best accommodation in the resort has to offer, but when you get back for your first holiday, you find it's nothing like what you actually thought you were buying. So another deception. So they're pretty commonplace. The problem is that a lot of timeshare resorts don't employ their sales staff, so therefore the actual resort management company, doesn't matter whether it's Diamond or whether it's just a small one-off operation, they have very little control over what the sales reps say, because technically speaking, the sales rep doesn't have a manager.
Oh my gosh.
So how can the contract be legal if it's not signed by somebody who represents the company?
Well, it's the age-old thing, isn't it? It's the license to lie clause. You know, a contract is put in front of somebody at the point of sale, and nothing differs in Europe as in America. You know, you get this ream of paperwork put in front of you with somebody saying all you need to do is sign here, sign here, sign here. Nobody reads it. But of course, the resorts would always turn around and say exactly the same as they do in America, verbal representation cannot be accepted as fact. So, you know, what you could have been told in a sales presentation possibly bears no resemblance at all to the actual product you've just autographed at the bottom of a purchase contract.
No, what I'm saying is that if the salesperson is not a legal representative with the company, they sign. When I was a salesperson, I signed contracts, I signed paperwork.
Yeah.
How can that even be legal if I don't work for the company?
Yeah, no, that doesn't happen in the UK. It doesn't happen in Europe, rather. What happens? The sales system is probably slightly different. The main reps who are on the deck, supposedly in a European timeshare resort, their job is to warm people up, to get friendly with them, take them around the resort, and then they back off completely. And then somebody comes in called the TO. Now, he's probably employed and he's on a salary, but he's the one who does the paperwork and the signatures. The rep, I tell you, it's a cardinal sin.
The liner,
If
yeah.
a rep opens his mouth during the TO's presentation, that's a cardinal sin. You know, he's done his job. He's taken everybody around. He's made friends with them. He's introduced them to TO, told them what a nice couple they are, and they're really interested. And then that's it. No more, no more. And then the guy who takes over is legally employed by the company and able to sign purchase contracts.
Well, and if someone has a complaint, in the U.S., you complain to the state attorney general, and some are very pro-consumer and some are very pro-industry. When people have a complaint, do they complain by country or?
Well, again, we'd have to take that as a sort of a separate answer. We'd exclude the UK for a moment, okay, because they're out of the EU. But the EU has an organisation which is represented in every country, and it is a consumer organisation. It's the European Consumer Council. There is an ECC in every single country in Europe, and that's where you can raise your complaints via the EU. With the UK, it's slightly different. With the UK, there's an organisation known as the Citizens Advice Bureau. They often give advice on people who may be missold. If you think it's been fraudulent, there's Action Fraud, which is run by the police. And a bit like the BBB, we have in the UK the Trading Standards Organisation. So if somebody is, for example, if the contract isn't in line with the law, Trading Standards will look at that contract, they will offer legal advice, put you in contact with lawyers, and then you can take it to court from there. So the mechanisms are in place. I suppose I'd be lying if I didn't say that they're worthwhile having, but to a certain extent, all of those organizations are like tigers without teeth. You know, there's a constant complaint in the UK about Action Fraud because the police do not have the resources, the manpower, or the money to take relatively minor fraud on. So in the example of like a timeshare exit, where somebody's paid an exit company, they've taken the money and just gone and disappeared. £2,000, £3,000, £4,000, the police won't even look at it. You know, when you get to the 400, 500,000 million, then Action Fraud kicks in. So there is little real consumer protection, but the mechanisms are there in place.
Okay, thank you.
So Wayne, do you have any other thoughts on this?
Well, I was just wondering, since the directives have come out, since UK has broken off from Europe, the laws are still enforced, the directives are still enforced in the UK?
Sorry, could you say that last part again, Wayne? I didn't hear you.
Because UK is no longer part of the European Union.
Yeah.
The directives are still enforced.
Yeah, I mean,
directives are still enforced.
The situation with the UK is sort of unique at this moment in time, because of the length of time that they were members of the EU, and because of what I said about the directives earlier that have to be placed into national law. The UK is still running pretty well parallel in all aspects with EU law. Now, ultimately, they say that the whole law system may be rewritten again to go back into the way it was before the UK were part of the EU. But realistically, right at this moment in time, the EU directive is still current and operational in the UK. So if you went to a UK resort, for example, sat through a timeshare presentation, they took £500 off you on the day, they've broken the law. Because the EU directive of 2008 was installed in UK statute law in 2010. And it still remains that way to this day, until such time as the legislators decide to rewrite the entire UK legal system.
Wow.
So what kind of issues are you having now with the consumers, and how are you helping them?
There are probably... There's a number of significant problems right now. I mean, we won't labor the COVID situation, but that has caused a lot of, discomfort with people, in as much as the fact that certainly where the bigger resorts are concerned, they're still insistent on paying maintenance fees, even though people aren't going to get a holiday. It doesn't take a mathematician to work out, and a lot of owners have worked out that if the resort's closed, the resort staff are being paid for by government furlough schemes. There's no maid service, so the resorts are probably making money while they're closed through COVID rather than losing money. So that's one big issue that we've been talking about, the non-return of maintenance fees for failure to use. Now, we have to be pretty hard on that. We have to say to people, well, look, you've got to understand that the maintenance fee doesn't pay for your holiday. You paid for your holiday when you paid all that money up front. that maintenance fee is what it says on the tin. It's to maintain the resort, and it's a contractual liability. So basically, while you own a timeshare, tough luck. So that's sort of one of the big issues at the moment. Another of the big issues, of course, is exiting. There's still very little in the way of hard and fast exit strategies with most UK timeshare resorts and even European timeshare resorts. There's an organisation in the UK called the Resort Development Organisation, which supposedly is the European trade body, similar to ARDA. It's virtually the same sort of concept as ARDA. The RDO has suggested that their member companies should charge no more than 3 years maintenance fees and let people out under only certain circumstances. For example, if you're dead, if you're dying, if you're bankrupt and you can prove it, or there's one other one which I can't remember now, but another rather stupid thing. So basically, in other words, they're saying that we don't really want to let you out, but if you fulfill those categories and you're prepared to pay 3 years maintenance, happy days, off you go. That works fine, except for the RDO, like ARDA, are not a regulatory authority. They're just a trade club. So resorts have chosen to ignore that. I mean, one particular resort group in the UK have decided to set on 5 years maintenance. So yeah, they'll let you out, providing that you're dead, nearly dead, bankrupt, but pay us 5 years maintenance in all those circumstances. So exiting is still a big problem. The transition scheme, for example, available to Diamond US owners isn't available to Diamond European owners. So although we know the transitions concept is really to upsell rather than to let people out, at least it's a step towards some kind of exit strategy. So exiting is another big problem. And the biggest problem we face as an organization is, unfortunately, the scam traders, the rogue operators that have managed to get data from a resort or a management group and phoning people up saying, if you pay us this amount of money, we'll get all your money back. And then they take the money and disappear. So that's probably the most part of our work, is taken up with tracking down these companies and reporting them where we can.
Well, I will speak in Diamond's defense. We're still a Diamond member, and if you want to transition, you don't have to talk to anyone about upselling. You go to your login page, and there's a button for transitions, and when you click it, it gives you your contracts and says which ones do you want to transition out of. Now, you don't want to go to a sales center. And I know I posted on Facebook, and I got a call from one of the top producers who wanted to talk to me about my options. So, but if you just stick with the login page, you can go straight to out of jail.
You see, that transitions is only available to American owners. The transitions offer never made it to European Diamond owners. At the moment, we understand that, providing, again, you have to sort of get yourself on a list. You know, it's not an automatic, yes, you can leave, but if you satisfy certain criteria, then you possibly can exit your European timeshare with Diamond for 2 years maintenance fees. But again, it's not cut and dried. It's not just a case of phoning them up saying, I want to come out. Okay, fine, pay us 2 years maintenance and you're out. You have to sort of jump through a few hoops to get there. So it's not, so exiting is still a big issue.
Well, before we end this interview, I just want to give a commercial for Koala, who we interviewed last week. And I looked at their website. There was a 2-bedroom Hilton at SeaWorld Orlando. I know, Keith, you like to visit Orlando. And it was listed to rent for $808. And then I went to booking.com and it was $1,100. And then someone posted that $800 was it was below maintenance fees, closer to that $1,100. So that might be something your European travelers, when we can travel freely again, might like to look into Koala.
Yeah, I think it's a great concept, to be perfectly truthful. Everybody's looking for a value for money holiday. You know, every now and again, I have a little mosey through the hotels on Earl Bronson Highway in Kissimmee, and then read the TripAdvisor reports and realize that they're all dens of drugs and so on and so forth. So a quality timeshare resort would probably, at my age now, be more better than some grotty little ex-Sheraton hotel on I-92. So yeah, you're probably right. I ought to look at that, and maybe our listeners or our readers to our website ought to have a look at it as well. We'll do some research for you, Irene.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Keith, we really want to thank you for coming on tonight. You've given us a lot to think about. I think we should have you back again. These are public awareness talks, because most of the public hasn't heard this before they hit a timeshare salesperson. And if they would have heard this, they would be more aware, and they probably wouldn't be duped. So thank you so much for coming on. And Irene, tell us about our guests coming up this coming week.
Yes, we have Bernadette from Oklahoma is going to be interviewed, and Keith mentioned the oral representation clause, and her husband has a chronic and debilitating health condition. They had no loan, and so they attended a presentation just to find out how to get out. And instead of saying go to your login page and press transition, they were told they had to, according to Bernadette, that they had to convert their deeded timeshare when they had no loan to points. And then there were she'll tell you more about it next week, but there were 2 other sales in an effort to get out. So it's very, very sad. And it all comes back to consumer awareness, consumer education, and defying that oral representation clause. Okay.
Well, thank everyone tonight. Any parting comments before we shut down?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, from my point of view, thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure, and I certainly look forward to joining with you again. And
Awesome.
Just one more final thing I forgot to mention, one more nail in the coffin of timeshare in Europe, is that it is now illegal for anybody to be on the streets to encourage somebody to go and visit a timeshare resort. So the old scratch card brigade and all that is gone. It's now illegal.
Whoa.
So
Awesome.
one more nail in the coffin.
Awesome.
So the marketing is going to be in-house, or how do they do the marketing?
They do what's called flybys. They phone unsuspecting British holidaymakers out of the blue and just say, how would you like a free week in the Costa del Sol? All you've got to do is pay for your airfare. And then when you get there, you get hammered for 5 or 6 hours. And at the end of it, most of you have bought a timeshare.
Well, thank everyone for watching. Thank you, Keith, for being with us, Wayne and Irene, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Keith.